Welcome back. I'm Donald Cleveland, author of Revitalizing America, a declaration against our government. And we left off the last time talking about how we were getting into the revolution, what happened as a result of the revolution, or in the meantime, all the problems, the Declaration of Independence. And today, we're going to start off by saying we won the revolution, but what comes next? Are there more promises? The British Army surrendered at Yorktown, Virginia on October the 19th, 1781. But the Revolutionary War didn't officially end until the Treaty of Paris was signed by representatives of King George III and representatives of the United States of America on September the 3rd, 1783, almost 2 years after the victory at Yorktown. Benjamin Franklin, John Jay, and John Adams were key negotiators for the United States. But you have to realize that all of the time the peace negotiations were going on, there was also an attempt by the Second Continental Congress, which was really an ad hoc committee or a committee appointed for a specific function, to try to work out a way to create a unified national government. That Congress finally adopted the Articles of Confederation on November the 15th, 1777, and sent it to the colonies, or the states, for ratification. It became our first constitution in March of 1781. The Articles gave the American national government many of the powers which had previously been held by the King of England. Further, Article 1 officially designated the national organization of the colonies as the United States of America. The designation of our country as the United States of America in Article 1 of the Articles of Confederation seems to be the enduring part of the Articles. They also provided for free movement between states, extradition between states for treason, felonies, and high crimes, but of course they also granted what they called full faith and credit between the states, which means basically one state had to recognize the laws of the other states as being valid. But it didn't carry forward, however, either the habeas corpus or the Bill of Rights that had been established already in England almost 100 years before under Charles I or Cromwell's governments. That was a big flaw. There are some distinct differences between the Articles of Confederation and its successor, the Constitution of the United States. The Articles did not separate the powers or create executive or judicial branches. All of the powers of the national government were given to Congress. So in many respects, Congress was to operate like a parliament. Even disputes between states were to be resolved by Congress. When Congress was not in session, the country was governed by a committee of the states. The committee had a president, but the person could only serve one term as president. So the first president of the United States was not George Washington, as many people believe. The first president of the United States of America in Congress assembled was John Hanson. And he became the first president under the Articles of Confederation in November of 1781. Hanson was a businessman and politician from Maryland, which, as you recall, was the first Catholic colony established in the United States. Raising money for the government of the United States for its defense and general welfare or operations of the government was not a simple task. Under the Articles of Confederation, it was done by levying a form of property tax on each state, and the words are in proportion to the value of all the lands within each state. The states then forwarded the money after collecting it to the national government. The states continued to be the source of funding for the defense and general welfare of the United States government until the authority was given to the U.S. government to levy direct taxes. So instead of having also elected representatives to the Congress of the United States, each state would annually appoint a delegation to represent it. A state could have up to 7, did I get 7 right? 7 members in their congressional delegation, but no less than 2. But regardless of the number, they only had 1 vote from the delegation for each state. The drafters of the Articles of Confederation were also more pragmatic than the drafters of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution. It was all business. There were no grand promises or statements about justice, welfare, tranquility, liberty. It simply started and concluded with the operations of the Confederation. This approach clearly kept down the hopes, beliefs, and aspirations of individuals in our society. In this respect, it didn't draw on the criticisms levied against the King in the Declaration of Independence to inspire the citizens of our new nation, as the Constitution seemed to do later in its fully amended form. The Articles failed for several reasons, but a primary reason was that the national government wasn't strong enough to manage uniform trade between the states or between the states and foreign countries. There was also a lack of a national currency. The issue of taxation, as I mentioned before, was also difficult, and defense between and across state borders was also a big issue. And the latter, one of the best examples of the difficulty was in Shays' Rebellion in Massachusetts, which happened between August of 1786 and January of 1787. It was an example of the woes suffered under the Articles and a motivating factor to give more authority to a national government rather than a confederation. In an effort to revise the Articles of Confederation, the Philadelphia Convention was convened, and delegates from the states worked from the late spring through the early fall of 1787 to literally throw out the Articles and come up with the body of the existing U.S. Constitution. George Washington was elected to preside over the convention. Since the convention was authorized by Congress, it was not a coup, but a use of congressional power to improve the governance of the country. Article 13 of the Articles of Confederation provided for its amendment. At the end of the convention, George Washington sent a transmittal letter to the Congress of the United States setting forth the mechanism for the adoption of the new Constitution by the states and finally by Congress. This procedure was followed because Congress had the authority to amend the Articles of Confederation with the agreement from the states. Now, after all the hard work in creating the Constitution of the United States, according to some accounts, when the discussions and amending and work was all over, the convention delegates broke up, went to a local bar, and had a beer to celebrate. A big question, though, remains about the Declaration of Independence. And basically, that is, how do the authors of the Constitution get the support of the people to adopt the Constitution like they tried in the Declaration of Independence? How about making another big promise? We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. The first phrase in the preamble uses all-encompassing terms to incorporate everyone in reading and hearing range by the use of its words, we, the people of the United States. Who wouldn't feel touched by this phrase? After all, I am we the people. We want tranquility, general welfare, justice, common defense, and liberty. So we want a constitution which encompasses all of these conditions for all of us. In other words, me too. The me is we. The basic Constitution, without the first 10 amendments, became the law of the United States on January 21, 1787. What we know as the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, had to be added and ratified on December the 15th, 1791, almost 4 years later. The basic Constitution, without the Bill of Rights, has 7 articles, and that's it. Article 1 establishes the executive branch. Article 2, the legislative branch. Article 3, the judicial branch. Article 4 creates relationships between the states. Article 5 sets forth how to amend the Constitution. Article 6 deals with the debts of the government, treaties, and oaths of office. Article 7 provides for the ratification by the states. So where are we in this mix of articles? Slavery was accepted in Article 4, and escaped slaves had to be returned to the slave state from which they escaped. Even though treaties are the law of the land, treaties with Native Americans were broken all of the time. Article 3 creates an independent judicial branch, but gives the power to Congress to establish the regulations under which it operates. And that also applies to the number of judges who can sit on the court. One of the bigger jokes about we is found in Article 1, in the description of who is eligible to be elected to the House of Representatives. The qualifications are as follows. No person shall be a representative unless they have attained the age of 25 years and have been 7 years a citizen of the United States, and who shall, when elected, be an inhabitant of the state in which he shall be chosen. It seems everything was going along fine until we reached the last phrase and saw that the representative had to be he. So, I guess the women were zapped by that little phrase, weren't they? I guess women were not we. But he doesn't necessarily rule out non-property owners or slaves, does it? Well, guess again, it did. So how can we promote the general welfare and establish justice and liberty if women can't be elected to Congress and slaves and non-property owners can't vote either? So in the end, I'll say this often, we got a republic, not a democracy. However, that's not surprising since the leaders in classical political thought, Aristotle and Socrates, both felt that society was made up of classes, and some of the classes were just better than others. According to Socrates, the classes were gold, silver, and bronze, or producers, auxiliaries, and guardians. A democracy, according to Aristotle, was the same as anarchy. These two sources of political thought were widely read by the educated people during the Revolutionary period and those who formed both the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution. Both of these authors were held up to political practitioners as leaders in democratic thinking because they were tied to Athens, Greece, supposedly one of the first democracies in the world. Anyone reading the Federalist Papers, the publication used to support the adoption of the Constitution, understands the numerous references in the Federalist Papers to the Athenians, Aristotle, Pericles, and Socrates. Is there any wonder that we should have slavery authorized in our Constitution? Because we shouldn't forget that the Athenians also had slaves. And for more information on the promises made and broken, you can visit my website at revitalizeamericanow.org, or better yet, you can buy a copy of the book on Revitalizing America from either my website or from Amazon.com. We'll speak again. Thank you.